Hello. Thank you for taking a moment to watch this training. On this video, I have two goals. Goal number one is I want to show you how you can take advantage of the PhoneBurner Power Dialer tool so that you can start powering through your calls at a rate of 60 to 80 dials an hour. And my second goal is to help you understand the customizations that have already been put in place to help you, as an insurance agent, better manage and follow up with those contacts as you're making those calls. So as you can see here on the screen, I have a dial session that's running. This is a dial session window that you would be seeing as you're making calls using PhoneBurner. You're going to have all the contact details up in front of you. You'll be able to view any custom data that you've imported related to those contacts. And as you're making calls, you'll be able to drop pre-recorded voicemails with a click of a button. You will no longer have to listen to the entire greeting. You won't have to wait for the beep. As soon as it goes to voicemail, click the button and boom, you're off to the next call. Each of these buttons can also be configured to trigger an email based off the call outcome. And each of these buttons can also be configured to automatically move contacts into specific folders within your account to help you organize those contacts automatically based off of the call outcome. And so now that you have a little bit of an idea of what PhoneBurner can do for you, let's talk about how the system has been configured thus far to help you become more efficient as a prospector. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window here. And let's go to PhoneBurner. This is your PhoneBurner account. Your PhoneBurner account has a built-in contact manager to help you organize your contacts. There is a leads folder and a contacts folder to help you out of the box organize your contacts. You can, of course, create as many new folders as you'd like to help you organize different lists any way you want. There's lots of different organizational methods that you can take advantage of within the system. But as you're making calls and you're clicking on dispositions, you're clicking on the buttons across the bottom of the screen, these contacts will be automatically organized and moved into different folders based off the call outcome. So if you get somebody who's not interested, they'll go into the not interested folder. If you book an appointment with somebody, they'll go into the booked folder, and so on and so forth. The contacts will automatically get organized based off of the call outcome. And most of this has already been pre-configured for you by the team admin. So make sure you say thank you to those that have gone in here and made these customizations to help shorten the time it takes for you to get up and dialing. Now let's dive into some of these customizations. We've already talked about the folders. Let's talk about those dispositions. If we go over here to our dial session settings and go to dispositions, you'll see some training videos here, but I'm going to show you that you should have a dialing set and live answer set already pre-configured. If I open up this live answer set, you'll notice that this looks very similar to the buttons that we were looking at the bottom of the screen after we had a live conversation with a contact. And you'll notice that each of these buttons is configured to move contacts into different folders. So depending on the call outcome, will determine where those contacts get placed within your contact manager, helping you to automatically organize those contacts based off of call outcome. Now you'll also notice that every one of these buttons has an option to trigger an email. Now right now, not all of your buttons may be configured to trigger an email, but you can, of course, edit those buttons and assign different emails to those buttons. Now there are currently a couple emails that are already pre-configured and ready for you to take advantage of. More will be coming as the team admin continues to build out the customizations. But if you wanted to create your own, totally possible for you to do that within your email settings. You can go into the email settings, into your email library. You can take a look at the system content. That's the content created by the system administrator. You can make copies of those. So let's say we want to make a copy of this. That creates a copy that I have full control over, where I can edit that, customize it, and once I'm happy with it, I can assign it to the dispositions or buttons of my choosing. So let's say I wanted to add this email to one of my dispositions. I'll go to Dial Sessions, Dispositions. That was our no answer email, so I'm going to edit the dialing set. And here are my dialing set buttons. They should look familiar as well. These were the buttons that we were clicking on as we were making those sample calls. And I have my no answer button here. I can edit that button, and I can assign my no answer copy email to that button and save changes. As you can see, it's very easy to customize this system. It's very easy to come in here and really make this system do what you want it to do. Couple other things that we need to consider here. Let's go back over to the email settings. We've already talked about the email library, which is where you can go to create your own emails or preview the system emails. But a lot of the information, let's go ahead and edit this email. The information that fills in this specific email, like my contact information, needs to be filled in. And where does that information come from? It comes from my email sending profile. It's important for me as an individual user to make sure that my email sending profile is up to date so that as the system sends emails on my behalf, all of those emails will contain all of my personal information so that my contacts will be able to get back to me. Now, of course, if I create emails on my own, I have total control over those. But all of the system emails, those are created using what are called merge codes or personalization codes. And those codes are reliant on the information that you provide in your email sending profile. Now, outside of the email side of things, let's jump back over to the dial session settings. We've talked about dispositions. We also need to talk about the voicemail library. You're able to create or upload audio files into your account, so you can create them by dialing in and entering your PIN. Don't use my PIN, use your own PIN. You'll dial into the system and you can record a voicemail in PhoneBurner just like you would record a voicemail on your cell phone. You call in, follow the prompts, say what you want to say, click the specific buttons, pounds and all of those different things to save the message, and the voicemail will be saved in your account. Or if you have a file saved to your computer, you can certainly upload it into your account. You can create as many voicemails within the system as you'd like, and whenever you start making dials, you can choose which voicemail you want to use for that specific dial session. Now, another thing that you may want to consider on your account is your caller ID. As you're making calls through the system needs to display a caller ID to your contacts. There's a few different ways PhoneBurner can get that caller ID. One is you can come in here and validate a caller ID. Another one is you don't have to validate any caller ID. You just dial into the system, and whatever phone you use to dial into the system will capture that caller ID and will redisplay that. We'll rebroadcast that. That's the caller ID that your contacts will see. Now, the problem with that is you always have to be calling from that specific phone. Now, when you verify a caller ID, it doesn't matter what phone or how you connect into the system. We can control that caller ID based off of you having verified or validated that specific caller ID. Now, in addition to that, if you are part of the premium package, you have access to what's called the V-Phone. Now, the V-Phone feature is only available to the premium account holders, which allows you to activate a specific phone number within your account. And then that phone number can be used as your caller ID as you're making calls through PhoneBurner. This also gives you the ability to send text messages when you're making calls using PhoneBurner. And any callbacks to that number can be answered through a Chrome extension, can be forwarded to your own phone number, or you can just direct them to voicemail and then you can call them back. Now, an even better option than this is the ability to activate what is called local ID. The local ID feature allows you to purchase different numbers throughout the United States. You can purchase 10 phone numbers or a number in every area code of the United States, and then the system will dynamically change the caller ID as you go from one call to the next. An extremely beneficial tool to help ensure the most people possible answer your calls live. Now, the last setting that I want to cover today is the phone scripts. Every one of you will have access to scripts that were created and made available once again by the system admin. So here you can see there are some voicemail scripts that you can use to help you decide what kind of voicemails you might want to create within your account. So you can see there are those 3 voicemail scripts, as well as this Facebook final expense phone script that you can have up on the screen as you're making calls. So at this point, we've done a little bit of a demo. You've seen the dialer in action to a very small degree. We've covered some of the settings. Now let's jump back into a dial session. Let's talk about the dialing process in more detail and how that data will be managed. So let's jump back over to contacts. We're going to go to our sample contacts. In this particular case, I want to call my sample contacts. I'm going to select all, and I'm going to begin a dial session. That's going to take all of those records that I just selected, and it's going to queue them up in what's called a dial session that's going to help me power through those calls. I can choose a phone script if I want to have a phone script on the screen, which I'm going to do because I want to show you how that works. My voicemail, what voicemail do I want to leave as I'm making calls? I only have the one recorded, so we're going to use that one. And then the dialing and live answer sets. Those are the buttons that we are going to be using as we make calls. Caller ID, you can see my vPhone number is automatically selected. But if I had a different phone number that I wanted to use, I could choose that at this point. And then the dialer mode is power dialing. We want to power through these calls, so I'm going to leave that set as power. And we're going to go ahead and continue. Now, because I'm a premium member, I can actually connect to my dial session by just clicking on this Grant Mic Access button. Now, if you'd sign up for the standard account, you would need to dial in. You just use your phone, dial the number on the screen, and connect your phone to PhoneBurner. But in this case, I'm going to use my headset that's plugged into my computer, and we're going to go ahead and grant access. I'm going to allow that connection, and now my headset is connecting to PhoneBurner. You can see my vPhone is configured as my caller ID, and I can start dialing. Now I'm going to start calling through my contacts. Here I'm calling Jeff Sample. I can review any previous call notes. I can review any details related to that contact that may be part of the custom fields that are specific to that record. I've got my phone script here, so I can review that and read that. I've got my SMS tab right here. So if I want to send a text message while I'm calling or talking to Jeff Sample, I can do that without a problem. Go ahead and type that in and hit enter. That'll send that text message off to the contact. Now, if I'm calling Jeff and he doesn't answer the phone, if it goes to voicemail, no problem. I don't have to listen to the entire greeting. I don't have to wait for the beep. I just click the voicemail button. And as soon as I click that voicemail button, I am off to the next call. So here we are calling Andrew Sample. Let me show you that voicemail option one more time. So let's say it goes to voicemail. Once again, I don't have to listen to the entire greeting or wait for the beep. Click that voicemail button and boom, I am off to the next call. Let's say I'm calling Jeff Sample and I'm tired of listening to it ring and I just want to move on to the next call. I can click the no answer button and that'll move me on to the next call. That's if I don't want to leave a voicemail. So here you can see how easy that is. No answer, busy signal. I just click the appropriate disposition. You'll see that the system has also triggered 2 emails to be sent based off of my disposition clicks. Very easy for me. I didn't even have to think about it. It just happened. If it goes to voicemail, click the voicemail button. Off to the next call. Let's say I want to pause a dial session. I can hit pause. That'll stop calling the contact, giving me time to do whatever it is that I want to do. And when I'm ready to start calling again, I can either hit the dial button here or continue dialing, and the system will start calling this specific contact again. So I hit dial, and now we're calling Jeff and JG live sample again. Let's say they answer the phone live. There's no pause, no delay, no awkward silence. I just start talking to them, and at some point during the conversation, click live answer. When I'm done talking to them, I click end this call. Now I've disconnected from that contact record, and I can take as much time as I want or need to update the details related to that conversation. I just add it to my notes. Once I've added my notes, I click on the disposition that makes the most sense based off the call outcome. Now, in the case of a booked meeting, before I disposition it, I may also want to add that event, that meeting, to my PhoneBurner calendar. So I can click on the schedule appointment. That'll bring up my calendar. Choose the date and time. Set a reminder if I want a reminder. And save and close. Now that I know that event is in my calendar, in my PhoneBurner calendar, I can now click the booked button, and that contact will be moved into my booked folder. Let me show you. Let's go ahead and move this off the screen. Go to our booked folder, and there you can see our contact right there. Jeff and JG Live Sample has been moved into that folder, helping me automatically organize my contacts based off of the call outcome. Now let's get back to our dial session. Let's continue dialing. So we're calling Shannon. So let's say Shannon answers the phone. So I click on the live answer button. When I'm done talking to Shannon, I click the end this call button. Now I do want to point out, you do not have to click live answer to start talking to Shannon. There is no pause, no delay, no awkward silence. You are live on the line. So when they answer, you can talk to them right away. Just at some point, you do want to click that live answer button so that you can end the call when you're done talking to them, at which point you'll be able to take as many notes as you want or need. So I add my notes, and this one is a follow-up. You'll see I have this follow-up button down here, but I can't click on it. It's grayed out. Why is it grayed out? Because I need to set a follow-up date. If I'm going to follow up with her, I need to tell the system when I'm going to follow up with her. So I need to click on this little calendar icon. That'll bring up a date option where I can choose one of these pre-configured amounts of times, maybe 2 days, 3 days. Now, in this case, I typed out 5 days. So I can go out 5 days. Now, I don't really do calls on Sunday, so I don't want to set a follow-up date for Sunday necessarily. So maybe I'll just set that to Monday next week. Once I have chosen a date, I can then click the follow-up button. When I click that follow-up button, that's when I will move on to the next contact record. In this case, Katrina and JG Live Sample. Let's go ahead and hit the live answer button again, end the call. Let's say I talk to this record and this person says, you know what, I'm super busy right now. Give me a call back later today. Make a note. Once I add that note, click on the little calendar and I can choose today's date. Today is the 9th. And then hit follow up. And I move on to the next call. Let's say Heather answers. We have a good conversation. I end that call. Let's say she wants a follow up in a couple weeks. 2 weeks, hit the follow-up button, I'm off to the next call. So as you can see, the system is designed in a way to help us power through our calls, to help us move from one call to the next as effective and efficiently as possible. If it goes to voicemail, click the voicemail button, off you go to the next call. Live answer, once again, no pause, no delay, no awkward silence. Click on the disposition that makes the most sense for the outcome that you experience. Now, if you are noticing that there are certain outcomes that you just don't see as options here, make sure you share that information with the system administrator. That way they can add that functionality to the system for the entire group. If they're not interested, I click the not interested button, so on and so forth. So now I just ended that session. Here you can see it took me 8 minutes. Made 14 calls to 15 contacts, had 5 conversations, 2 emails, 4 voicemails, and I saved 22 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and close that. If I refresh my sample contacts folder, you'll see that list is much smaller. Now, if I go to my follow-up folder, I have all these follow-ups. Now, you can imagine as time goes on, your follow-up folder is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can easily start to lose track of specific records that you need to follow up with on specific times or at specific times. You can see over here on the right, I see the follow-up date, February 9th, February 15th, February 23rd. But I don't want to call these two today because that's not today's date. I'd be calling them too early. So we actually have what's called a saved search called Today's Follow-ups. What's great about this? When you load that, it's going to show you all of the records that are in your follow-up folder that have a follow-up date that is today or older. So it's only going to show the people that you need to be following up with right now, saving you a ton of time trying to organize or figure out who to call. You just need to make sure that you are checking your today's follow-ups at least once a day. In my opinion, I like to check and call my today's follow-ups at the start of the day, and then I like to end my day going through today's follow-ups one more time so I can do one more cleanup call to everybody that I needed to follow up with but I haven't connected with, and I can catch anybody that I talked to already today that asked me to call back later today, like we had with Katrina here. We talked to her earlier. She said, I'm super busy. Call me back later today. So I made a note of that, set the follow-up date to today, knowing that before I wrapped up my day, I would go back through today's follow-ups to make sure that I covered any follow-ups that needed to be cleaned up for today. So anyway, that's a quick demo overview, review of the configuration of the system. I don't want to take any more of your time right now, but I do want to point out one last thing before we wrap up, and that is if you go to PhoneBurnerAgencyTraining.com, you'll be able to access specific resources for your organization to learn how to better take advantage of this tool, including testimonials from other agents in the field and how they're using this tool to get more done in less time. Thanks again, and happy dialing.